These kind of early high value use cases are going to be incredibly powerful to get people on board, using it, finding some efficiencies, saving them some minutes and hours every week. It's that kind of thing that is going to build momentum. Hey, so, I'm sort of stuck on this idea though about what does this mean for intranet. Again, we put a couple of posts up on LinkedIn a month or so ago where we've been doing some early research work on what is the context of the intranet inside of the Copilot user interface, right? So, you're in Teams, you're in Outlook, you're in Word, you're somewhere in the Copilot interface, and you need content information from your intranet. We've been playing around with this idea of, the intranet as a sort of data source, a scoped data source, and allowing people to be able to ask questions. And I guess for me, following that thread onwards few years, do these kind of tools become an existential threat for intranets?
Hi, David. Great to be here. Great to be here with you. So you have been like traveling a lot, and now again here.
Yes. I think I'm back home today.
That's good. Takes a while.
Yes, indeed. What's up with you then, Yarbus? What have you been up to?
Well, look, I have a new haircut, new background.
Looking fresh.
Well, you can hear near the background. Exactly. Looking fresh perspectives, different setup. All good.
Wonderful. Hey, so topic for today, we're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about intranets, and my favorite current subject of intranets having an existential crisis with generative AI and Copilot.
I think it was about time that we talk about AI. Everyone's talking about AI. So no, it's a mandatory topic to have in the podcast, to have in the blog post everywhere. So great that finally that we have AI here.
Yeah, and we've got no shortage of uninformed opinions as well. So that's going to help us out.
That's interesting. And well, we'll have a lot of topics to talk about. Microsoft Ignite has now it's happening.
Yes, live.
So it's
it's finished now, isn't it? As we're at the time of recording.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to do before we get started is say a big hello to Matthew Burrell, long-time friend of Fresh.
Exactly. Always contributing. He's the third listener, isn't it?
Yes.
So along with your mom and dad. So
yeah. All right. So why don't you kick us off, Yarbus, with Ignite in full flow? And for anyone that doesn't know, what is Ignite? Why is it important? Why is it in our calendar?
It's a big Microsoft event, isn't it? Like where they're covering a lot of important announcements that happen throughout the Microsoft platform, especially here Microsoft 365 and related services. So, and of course, if you can summarize Ignite with one word, that would be Copilot, right?
Yes.
So I've just been listening to Satya's keynote at Ignite, and Copilot is from the beginning to the end, which you see like the value of Copilot and the amount of investment that Microsoft has put in this service, right? And like how extensively it is implemented across the platform.
Yeah. Well, I guess what's apparent is the level of investment that is going into Copilot, and not just from an engineering perspective either, with every team, I imagine, at Microsoft being kind of directed towards this as a application service, integrated across the platform, but also on their marketing as well, right? It has extreme presence in the market. I think possibly more so than any other Microsoft innovation that I've ever seen.
That's true. It has a big impact. It's they are rolling it out, or maybe it's available across many services, well-known services like Teams that we have been using ourselves here, like in our day-to-day work, Outlook, and of course now also coming in different areas like SharePoint. Not just extract information from SharePoint, like Copilot going there, looking at the documents, giving you information out of that documents, but now being available in SharePoint. So that's a big difference, I think, also.
Yeah, and there's a consumer version of this as well, isn't there? You can download the Copilot app for free from your app store of choice, and is available as a kind of public facing thing as well. No license required to use it.
Yeah, that's true. No, so It does not connect like to your organizational data when you go like with the free option, but it's still available for users to use and consume and benefit like from the AI advantages that tools like ChatGPT and Copilot also can offer.
Yeah. So lots of announcements this week at Ignite about Copilot. What's the kind of one or two headline themes for you? Given that we're here today talking about SharePoint and intranets.
Well, but exactly. So as you mentioned, SharePoint and the intranets, then agents in SharePoint. So basically having a scoped agent directly available from SharePoint that you can use to, let's say, put it simply, like talk with the content of your SharePoint site or content of libraries of selected documents within a library. I think this is a big plus that's coming that will be available across any site collection in SharePoint. And I also like the aspect of autonomous agents that you can then create now with Copilot Studio. That means you can have an agent performing desired tasks on your behalf. So this is I think quite powerful. So having an automation process where you have like no human interaction, and the AI then I'll take some decisions within kind of the boundaries that you provide to it. I think this is quite exciting, and it will help like people save time, right?
So this is like a kind of from a prompt being able to book annual leave.
This is, for example, I think the scenario that they presented was actually like from McKinsey, helping improve and simplify the onboarding of new customers. So when a new email comes in, then AI taking then specific actions and helping them with this client onboarding from beginning to the end. So this type of work, but there are also examples of agents helping you even perform those tasks, like booking then an annual leave. So this are the things that we can expect in the context of our Microsoft 365.
There was also, I saw a video posted by Adam Harmitz, who is the boss of SharePoint at Microsoft. He was showing a pretty interesting demo, wasn't he, from his machine while he was drinking his coffee.
Well, that was a nice video. Yes, definitely. I like that as well. And you are talking about then Copilot helping. Let's talk about communicators here, helping communicators create news posts in SharePoint and all of that automatically. So not just crafting the content within the news post, which has been possible so far, but generating the page, the news page, with also like all of the content, not just the text, but also an image, some citations. That's also like a very powerful functionality. We have seen this presented some months ago, maybe a year ago, that functionality, and now it seems like to be become live, which is again exciting times for people in Microsoft 365 in SharePoint with a Copilot license. Also, one aspect to mention on these Copilot agents, especially we talk about agents in SharePoint, is the aspect that you might also have then a pay-as-you-go option, like for people without a Copilot license to be able to like to interact with the agents in SharePoint. So that's also
It's
like
a
big
kind of
benefit.
interesting scenario, isn't it, for organizations with high volumes of frontline workers without necessarily having the appropriate licenses to be able to use Copilot, of being able to ask questions of policy documents or other materials within SharePoint without needing to have licenses.
Yes, exactly. Well, that helps. That helps with the adoption process of this new technology, and as you mentioned, also like of democratizing then AI.
Yeah. Okay, so some neat sounding things coming from Microsoft announced at Ignite this week.
Definitely, much more. We could spend like the entire podcast episode just talking about that, but that's not our goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, then we have the challenge that we want to cover, and especially when it comes like to the context of intranets.
Yeah, and last week I was at the Future of Comms event organized by Reagan, kind of away from the glitz and glamour of technology to the glitz and glamour of internal and external communications. And I think this is maybe the sort of seventh or eighth event that I've been to this year in the world of internal communications. And the kind of biggest shift that I've seen, and I mentioned this in a kind of wrap up post on LinkedIn last week, that the first event that I went to, kind of February March time this year, still very few conversations with people about AI. People exploring it. Certainly not many had heard of or were using Copilot. To the event last week where people were kind of proactively asking about AI integrations, uh, people asking about compatibility with Copilot, right? We're in SharePoint, we're progressing an initiative in the organization to get people using Copilot, people talking about their use cases in Microsoft Teams and Outlook. And that was a real kind of stark change for me of a non-technical, traditionally non-technical role and part of an organization, really starting to explore this technology in anger.
It's interesting to see like how the discussions have then shifted, like from maybe more initial people like having the first experiences to now like more exploring specific use cases.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the Teams and Outlook use cases are particularly important introductions for people into this world. If you're brand new to prompting but do spend a lot of time in meetings or trying to process a lot of emails, back from holiday from 2 weeks off,
Yeah.
straight back into your mailbox, of being able to get Copilot to give you, tell me what's the most important thing on my list, or what are the actions that I need to take care of. Those kinds of use cases, there's a real tangible saving for people there.
I'm curious, like when you are very active, like going to those different type of events, especially like in US. So how like these discussions will be the next year when maybe there are even like more capabilities when it comes like to Copilot now in Microsoft 365 as we have had like so far. So how much will people like be using? What are the scenarios? Like also when it comes like to the agents. So very, very interesting indeed.
Yeah. And I think you can see from the announcements from Microsoft this week about the agents in Copilot that there is a specific steer towards, these use cases are useful for people in HR, or these use cases are useful for people that are project managers. That kind of, bundling together those sort of prompts, that kind of information. That's feels like an important shift towards this being mass adoption rather than just in the hands of people that understand the technology.
Yeah, so like not, I think I like this aspect that it's scoped. So
Yeah.
it's focusing on a specific task. It's there like to help you within that specific scenario. This is like talking about our own solution. This is how we have been trying like to develop AI within the context of an internet, bringing the scenario, the use case to people.
Yeah. I think the kind of full automation is some way off still for kind of mass adoption, but I think that these kind of early high value use cases are going to be incredibly powerful to get people on board using it,
Yeah.
finding some efficiencies, saving them some minutes and hours every week. It is that kind of thing that is going to build momentum. Hey, so I'm sort of stuck on this idea though about what does this mean for intranet, right? I think again we put a couple of posts up on this on LinkedIn a month or so ago, where we've been doing some early research work on using what is the context of the intranet inside of the Copilot user interface, right? So you're in Teams, you're in Outlook, you're in Word, you're somewhere in the Copilot interface, and you need content information from your intranet. That we've been playing around with this idea of the intranet as a sort of data source, a scoped data source, and allowing people to be able to ask questions. And I guess like for me, following that thread onwards few years, do these kind of tools become an existential threat for intranets? I think I'm in a kind of ever shifting position on whether this is a kind of real threat to what people traditionally see an intranet as, or if it is just bullshit, right? That people will still be using this thing as a user interface for many years to come. Do you agree? Do you have any views on this?
First of all, I think we need to spend time thinking about that, and we also enter discussions with clients, with people within the comms community, clients, and so as I mentioned before, so where they also having kind of asking the same questions. So what would be my internet experience in maybe 2 years from now? So do I still like need a full interface as we have today? Do we need like a homepage with the different components we have there? Do we need a global navigation to access content within my intranet? Or will I be able to access all of that content directly from an AI interface like Copilot? So there's those are very valid questions. And yeah, so we spend time thinking about that. So I think when you think of an internet, so you have the aspect of the information that is within the internet that people can people go to the internet to access information, to find information. They use the search. So when it comes like to findability of information, I think those scenarios you can definitely have AI Copilot supporting you with that. Right, definitely. So that's that people are using Copilot today already, like to find information within Microsoft 365.
Yeah, but I think that the challenges for me on this, and I guess maybe this is kind of current state challenges rather than maybe these challenges won't necessarily exist in the months and years to come, and that someone will have a neat solution for this. Is that people say to me when I present this kind of what do you think? Is AI an existential threat for intranets? The challenge you get back on that is, well, it requires the underlying data to be well structured, well managed, maintained, because when you search intranets today, typically the search results that people get back is it's not always amazing, right?
Yes.
If you're using the kind of raw, out of the box SharePoint experience, people do find it challenging to get the right search results when they're kind of browsing the intranet part of SharePoint.
Yeah, well, look, if you think of Copilot, right? So just Copilot as is right now here without all of the different additions that are coming. Copilot, if you go there to the chat experience, you ask a question about some information, it will look for everywhere where you have access. If you don't specify the prompt, right? So if you just go there, so give me specific information on this topic, it will look at Outlook, your Teams messages, and also SharePoint will come back with the information, will give you that information. So there is the scope is if you don't define that with your prompt, so it's going to be basically everything.
Yeah, and that that requires that the end user understands a lot more about the structure of your intranet than you would ideally like them to know, right? URLs, particular sites, libraries, locations. In order for the users to have a good experience on content that is owned by the intranet, they've got to understand quite a lot about the architecture that it's built with, right? So that that for me is a kind of no-go, right? So until a solution can be put in place that reduces the amount of information that the end user has got to have, I think the results you're going to get back are going to be patchy at best.
Well, but I think that's the place where then the agents or like having a scoped experience to interact with the data is important, and then you have the benefit where maybe AI can become, well, not that it will replace the internet, but it will become then the interface that you use to interact or to find information, to extract information that lives within the internet. In internet, also, then in this case, you're not just providing the interface, the surface in the data, but provide also like the tools to keep the data well governed. So like the governance options, content management.
So the agent is the thing that is providing the scope here for us, right? So
Yeah,
when we're thinking about kind of logical sections of our intranet in a kind of chat prompt Copilot interface, we're thinking about end users engaging with the agent rather than the kind of raw prompt, right?
Yeah.
So there's summoning an agent. Maybe that agent is something to do with policies, right? Hey, policy agent, can you help me with this question about my holiday or expenses or my sick leave, right? That the agent is providing the context for the end user's information.
Yeah. No, I mean, what do you think when it comes like to all of the work that someone in comms has to do? Well, it's still like in creating the content, making that message be authentic, bring that message to people, because Copilot is of course this what interface where information workers have the access to, but you also have all the other aspects where you maybe want to reach the frontline workers, and those are challenges that communicators have anyway. So what do you think
but I
about
guess
that?
what you can see happening in the outside world, right? In real life, away from intranets, is people using things like ChatGPT or other prompting models to get answers rather than search for stuff, right? So traditionally, where you would have been presented with a page of results in Google, and it's left to you as the end user to go and kind of click on the links, read the pages. What you're doing now is, or what people are beginning to do now, is ask questions and get answers from AI, from a chatbot that is being generated by one of the providers on the internet. And it's that behavior will start to influence how people behave at work, right? That you're looking for answers rather than searching for and then browsing pages. And I guess the potential is there for that to have an impact on how people create content, right? Because if your content page is left to be summarized by an AI, maybe there is a way of building that page that's going to get your key points into the summary in a stronger way, right? Just in the same way that when we're thinking about building content for the website, ensuring good SEO, making sure your keywords are in there, that you've used the same phrases, that there's some a kind of mild bit of repetition in the content, that there is a way of creating the content that ensures you're going to get a slightly better version of that summarized for people in your agent or your Copilot.
So are we going to have so how is that then? AI optimized content?
Yeah. I was trying to think of maybe there's I'm sure someone will have coined it already. I would love to have been the first to have created a new acronym for the industry.
Yeah, but I think that makes sense, right? So helping them, right? So helping in the process of generating the content, that we're already maybe thinking like, how will AI interpret this content? How do I need to structure my content so that AI can extract like the key points the way I want AI to do that?
And I guess these are sort of ongoing implications to a number of people in your organization engaging with the content in your intranet in this new way, right? Because it may not be everybody in the organization, right? And there is a percentage of people that are using prompts to get information out of the intranet. Hey, news agent, what's in the news today? And then getting a summary of the stories that other people are reading, the kind of full content on the homepage. That maybe there are some implications into how that content is being created, or maybe a need to, as part of the agent, to be pushing content at people, right? So curating content on the basis of the intent behind the prompt, right? The agent is able to identify this person is asking information about policies, therefore these news stories might be more useful for this person.
Right. But well, look, it's like in the context of will AI replace the internet? I think that some areas of the internet AI will play a bigger role, and I think there are areas of internal communication where you still need the different tools and interface for you to get your work done, and also to bring the message across different channels to people.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the fundamentals of this are that content needs to exist. It needs to reflect what the organization can and will consume, right? That I think that probably of all of it, the person that is creating the message and making sure that it is relevant to the audience across the organization, that for me becomes the thing that is always going to be consistent. And I think the thing that is likely to need a human being doing some level of content creation, curation, to make sure that it fits the people that are in the organization. I think the delivery mechanism of that is likely to change because of all these factors that we're talking about, right? The investment going in from Microsoft into Copilot, it will be successful. The amount of training that's going in organizations to make sure people know how to prompt, the amount of usage of chat-based AI products that's happening in the market generally, right? All of those things are changing the way that people are looking for content, right? They're looking for answers rather than browsing for stuff.
That's correct.
So I think there is a change coming, whether we like it or not. And if that's not everybody, right, it's still going to be some people in the organization that are going to be using the systems in that way. And that is likely to have an impact into how we create the content. It's likely also to have an impact into how we manage and measure the content that people are using, right? Because if someone's browsing a page, there's a page view that exists there, and you can interpret some analytics from the time they spend on the page, how far down they scrolled, where they spent their time, what links they clicked on. if this is being summarized in a chat experience like Copilot, did that ever happen? Right? Is the outcome of that content being tracked somehow?
Well, this sounds all very interesting, and I'm with this idea now in mind here. So having people doing like the content creation for AI, as you mentioned, and also like adapting the content for AI, then like to extract the main points there. So this is where I think very interesting, and well, I would like to try that myself now and like see how much impact and how well that would work.
Yeah. And the other area that we've been spending some time talking to people about, customers, organizations that we would like to work with, influencers in our industry, on kind of what are the useful scenarios, right? Before intranets are
Right.
completely replaced by Copilot, what are the scenarios that AI can lend a hand, can make better, can improve as part
Yeah.
of the intranet? And I guess the thing that we've seen most, the highest volume of oohs and ahs moments in demos, has been on things like policy chat, being able to talk to policies.
True. Well, yes. So that's a scenario we have into our product, right? So where people can use AI to talk with a selected amount of policy documents or pages within the intranet, and that doesn't matter like where they are located. So you have an interface like a web part where you have kind of a policy hub that shows all of your policies across the entire intranet. And now the great thing is that, for example, you could have AI where that would allow you to chat with the content of that selected content, like the content that appears on this web part. So this is a feature that's definitely very powerful because you are giving them people that scoped use case. So you don't. It's not like, okay, so you go and you ask a question, you get information from everywhere on your Microsoft 365. You are just getting information back related to that policies.
Yeah, and I hope no one in our HR team is gonna listen to this, because I hate reading those documents. I have to read them, and I hate reading them. They're long, usually full of words that I don't always understand or have the energy to go and look up. And I guess taking away the need to read some of those documents and having the summary or being able to get an
Yeah.
answer is useful for me. I guess the danger of what's lost in the summary is maybe on some of the more specific points, right? Where there is a detailed process that needs to be followed for something. If that isn't included in the summary and I don't go and read it, I might think that I'm following the policy, but I'm not actually following the policy. So it's not a perfect solution.
That's a good point. Now, if you think of another use case here, looking more towards helping find people in the organization, what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, again, I think browsing, using refiners, keyword searches, they're kind of age-old traditional models, but increasingly, I think people want to get answers to a question, right? Who in legal do I need to talk to about this type of contract, right? And being able to get some recommendations rather than a bit of guesswork and then messaging people individually on Teams or sending emails or calling them. Maybe people still do that.
Yes. Well, I think also like because we are in SharePoint, so we have the user profile properties, and then having AI also like taking making sense of that data and help you then like find people maybe with specific expertises. I think that's also a scenario that we have implemented in the product, and when we present, we have like also then the clients using that. That's a really big like a feature that adds a lot of value
Yeah.
to clients. When because I was thinking now of we have this editor calendar within the product, and one area that we would like to maybe extend it is combining AI with analytics data and having AI then giving people suggestions on the best time in the day or best day in the week to publish a specific type of content. So and that would really like help the communicator understand, okay, so we have the analytics data, so I don't need to go there and like try to understand that data and use like different keywords.
Yeah.
But I have AI proactively giving me that suggestion. And I think this is AI again, like in the different areas where I'm performing my work. So I'm editor calendar trying like to plan the content for this week, for this month. AI is there supporting me with my task. I'm like in the trying to find someone with specific capability in the organization, so I can have AI there again giving me that suggestions. So I think this is how we are going to have AI more and more within the internet context.
Yeah, and I think those internal comms roles are often teams of one or teams of two, or in some cases, shared responsibilities depending on the organization size and budget. So being able to provide recommendations or best practices, not a big fan of the term, but helping, using AI, using historical data, using analytics to make some suggestions about good time to publish content for certain teams or certain groups, rather than having people trawl through loads of data or try and interpret results from graphs. That kind of proactive push of recommendations feels like a really good area, given how much data exists
Yes.
in platforms like SharePoint.
That's like coming back here to the Microsoft Ignite keynote, and then talking about agents in SharePoint. So there is so much data already within SharePoint.
Yes.
When we think of analytics, also, right? So how much data is collected on a hourly basis about the behavior of users on the internet? And
Yeah, I
now,
saw there was a a couple of great statistics. I saw every day 2 billion files are added to SharePoint and OneDrive, and 2 million new SharePoint sites are created. I mean, these are incredible statistics.
that's incredible. That's incredible. So then all of this data exists, and now we can kind of get back to what you mentioned here initially. Of course, you need a governance in place to how remove the outdated data, so you can really like have good outcome.
Maybe a good percentage of those are going to be David's version 2.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that's a it's not like you may make a joke here, but of course this is a common scenario, right, across many organizations. And then now, like if we think of search again here, so we have search and a Copilot in this case, or they are all consuming the data within your intranet. So this data needs to be as it had like to be good for search. This data needs also like to be in a good condition for you like to take the most out of it, right? So otherwise, then people, and maybe like that's really even more risky than with search. So they will just get the summary of version 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And that is a challenge, because I'm not sure like if people always go there and they can check, validate the information that they get out of an AI bot.
Yes. Yeah. And again, highlights the need for underlying data management. Maybe the kind of key role of intranets in the future is more insight, reporting, helpful suggestions on what to do to solve some of those oversharing problems.
That's a good point. And I think also like if from our point of view, so the way how we keep developing our AI capabilities in the product, we are looking at, when we are providing a chatbot experience, we are providing that within a scope, so that people can curate the content that the AI can consume, and that's available within only that scenario. So I think this helps you also like overcome some of those challenges, right? So where here, look, this is all of the data I have. Now go there, make sense of it, and give me a summary. In this case, you're curating and say, okay, so those are kind of the 10, 100 files that you can use to provide answers for users.
Yeah, and I think from a kind of intranet manager owner, the best scenarios, I think, as much as I'm kind of making this point about intranets kind of having an existential crisis with AI, people that are managing these solutions, that have great insight into content that people need, that understand the kind of rhythm of the business, that know what people want, it's those people that are still going to make the difference to a great intranet experience, because they're the ones that are going to be mopping up the data, shutting down duplicates, making sure that the scope of these systems of search, of AI, is as sharp as possible. So, I think there is still a fundamental role for humans to play in this. I think it is the user interface and the way that people are accessing these systems that is likely to change, rather than the great work that all of the people out there do in these systems.
Now, if you would guess, like, how fast do you think that, well, AI will replace some areas of the internet? Maybe it's search, right? So that will be replaced with an AI interface for finding information.
Yeah, and I think that feasibly could be a kind of 12 to 18 months timeline, right? Where the face of intranet search in 18 months looks very different from how it does today. And the way that people think about using search is changing. And, I think once it is easier to get answers rather than browse, that will become the way that people want to use these systems. And that I think will become the gateway to changing the way that we think about the user interface of an intranet.
If we think a bit of Microsoft Teams, like I'm involved like in different meetings about different topics, sales and product and so on. So I see more and more people using this Copilot summary of the meeting. Sometimes also like to get the sentiment, and so that has really definitely changed, right? So the way
Yes.
how we used to you would like open the recording and watch that, trying like to find the words correctly. So now
Because
you
it's
ask,
useful, right? It
is
has
useful.
value to people. I understand implicitly what that means to me, right? That I don't have to spend time typing up my notes or watching a team meeting back. The time saving there is so tangible. It's a boring job. I don't want to do it.
Yes.
And being able to offload that to some agent that's doing it for me, I mean, that is an absolute win for everybody. Company wins, I win, the people that are receiving the information wins. It is a kind of overall positive impact.
And then getting back to the search experience, so I also believe that the way how I think we have always wanted that, right? So you ask a question, you get like the answer instead of kind of here like those are the most probably like those are the top 5 files here or 10.
You mean people want search to work?
Well, yeah. So that's I think that this is what we
It'll
have
never
been
catch
looking
on.
for, right? So yeah. So we have been looking for that, right? So you use your you type your question, you get the maybe the summary of the answer, or maybe make like here a recommendation. I like the experience that exists in Bing, where you get a summary of different articles as an answer, and then you can like still go and validate. So
I think
maybe
the
that's
team at Microsoft would be very happy to hear you say that.
that's good. Well, yes, we are pro Microsoft. Just emphasize that again. Yeah, but definitely.
We will obey our masters. Hey, Jarvis, great chatting to you today.
We could continue talking, I think, about the AI topic for many other minutes. But David, always great to talk to you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in person soon. Well, we have like soon the opportunity, which will be very great. Yes, thanks again.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Cheers.